Good afternoon, everybody. Call the Police Advisory Board Committee meeting here to order. And administrative and procedural issues, so approval of the agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look at the agenda. Is there any additions or admissions? Seeing none, I'll look for approval of the agenda. Councillor Hotelling, and second by Councillor Fromm. Approval of the minutes, so the minutes were also circulated with the package. I don't think there's any errors in the minutes, so we'll look for approval of the minutes. Approved by Councillor Lee and second by Councillor Strong. Business issues.
Mr. Chair, just before you start that, it's our error. We didn't include the territorial acknowledgement on the agenda, and so I would say, if I could, that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the unceded and ancestral land of the Mi'kmaq people.
Thank you. Section 3, business issues. So district priority discussion. Sergeant Clark is going to lead us in a verbal update.
Hey, good afternoon. I just wanted to discuss the priorities for Cumberland District for the policing year. So what we identified through consultation with partners, community leaders, discussions with yourselves, previous board meetings, we had three main areas to focus on. One was road safety, that we identified as being an ongoing issue, people of Cumberland. Other was enhanced police visibility, coupled together with community engagement, was the second. And the third was crime reduction. So these are all broad focuses that we have. And under each one of those, like road safety, for example, there will be an education component, an enforcement component, special activities component surrounding, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and certain seasonal activities we participate in, Canada Road Safety Week, those types of things. For enhanced visibility and community engagement, today, for example, we have our Police Week event in Spring Hill, bringing the community together, busing in kids from across the county, and we're making great efforts to have the members out into the schools with more frequency than there has been the last couple of years. And crime reduction is ongoing, of course. Lots of ground to cover with that broad brush. But focusing on general duty policing, proactive policing, and our SKU team, our Street Crime Enforcement Unit, to tackle the more major issues that the general duty patrol members don't have time to deal with. So that's the focus, that's the direction that we're focusing on. And we try to have any of our activities, along with our response or calls for service, any proactive activities that we're engaged in should fall under one of these priorities. Anybody have any questions for those?
Nope. Question here, Councillor Lockhart.
I just had a comment. I was at the event today in Spring Hill, and it was very well put on and well attended. I was there. There was a lot of school kids there around 12 o'clock or so. So, very nice event.
Great. Thank you.
Is there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to 3.2. The quarterly stat report, and Sergeant Clark, you're up again.
Okay, so quarterly stats, I'll run briefly through our numbers for each area. And then I'd just like to talk about some trends for the district overall compared to year over year. That's all right. So I'll start with just alphabetical. It's not an order of preference or anything. I'll start with Amherst Detachment. So our total files for January, February, March, you'll see on the first page there is 269, 269, and 219, which gives us 751 for that quarter, total calls for service. Of those, persons-based crimes, there's 32 of those. 458 were generated with traffic-related offenses, 2 drug offenses, 89 other municipal, provincial, or federal that don't fall into the aforementioned categories, and 44 other criminal code, and then 106 other, which is kind of a catch-all for anything that we haven't previously reported on. And then there's a pie chart with a graphic there to illustrate that. Obviously, traffic Any of the detachment areas that have the 104 run through them, traffic tends to be a large portion of our calls for service. Oxford, fall count for January, February, March respectively are 228, 157, and 101 calls for service files. Total file year-to-date is 485 for that quarter. 4 persons crimes, 19 property crimes, again, traffic-related 358 due to the 104 highway. Nothing for drug offenses, other municipal, provincial, federal, 47, other criminal code, 28, and an other 29. And again, with the graphic, and for Oxford, where they capture a large part of the Cobequid Pass, that's a significant portion of their calls for service. Parsboro, January, February, March, 40, 18, and 46. So that's a 104 total file count for the 3 months. 10 persons crimes, 5 property crimes, 20 traffic related, 2 drug offenses, 23 other municipal, provincial, federal, 23 other criminal code, and then 21 other. Again, the graphic, Parsboro being farther away from the main highway, you'll certainly see a more evenly distributed as the offenses in the graphic there. Traffic being a much smaller portion. Pugwash, January, February, March, 71, 40, and 62. Total is 152. And 7 persons crimes, 10 property, 33 traffic related, 0 drug offenses, 40 other municipal, provincial, federal, 18 other criminal code, and 44 other. Again, the graphic showing those numbers. In Spring Hill, January, February, March, 120, 111, and 117, for a total of 341 files. 29 persons files, 22 property, 71 traffic related, 2 drug offenses, 108 other municipal, provincial, federal, 56 other criminal code, and 53 other.
Spring Hill has the highest mental health act too.
Yeah, Spring Hill has, again, certainly more akin to town policing as opposed to rural policing, right? We certainly see that in the types of calls that we attend. So I have those numbers there. Did you want me to go over the year-over-year now, or do you want me to go through the notables, or what would you prefer?
We can do it whichever way you want to do
Okay,
it.
I'll quickly run down
Do
through
the
the
year.
notables, just
Notables, yeah.
speak to them.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just a question, and I think you answered this, last time, Andrew, and that was the traffic moving violations, and you talked about the proximity to the highway. Do these include traffic stats that are from the highway folks, or is this just
This is
your members in Cumberland?
Cumberland
Detachment?
District.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the traffic group setting up a speed, whatever, I want to call it a speed trap or whatever, just your traffic enforcement folks on the highway, not included here.
Those stats, I don't believe are captured here.
Okay.
They're not. These are just ours. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As you say. Now, some of those are self-generated, like proactive, right? Some of them are reactive, where we're getting a call of an erratic or a dangerous driver or whatever. So there's both types of occurrences in there, right? So us doing something, but it's Cumberland District.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe before we get into notables, anyone else have any questions on the quarterly report? Seeing none, we can, sorry.
That's all right. I'm way over here.
Yeah. Councillor Strong, yes.
Thank you. A question about the mental health calls. As I saw through the whole thing, I noticed that they're definitely ramping up. Is there specialized training for the officers when they receive a mental health call?
There's, well, we get de-escalation training and we have resources. Some of our members have received critical
incident training.
Yeah, so that's targets mental health specifically.
And are you aware that it is a mental health or a wellness check when you're dispatched or when you're?
It depends.
Okay.
Sometimes what you see is what you get, the dispatch is what we're attending. Sometimes it could be, request for unspecified assistance, like we'll just get assist general public. It could be shoplifting offense, it turns into a mental health situation, so it's kind of all over the place.
Not cut and dried.
Not always, no.
And one other question, in your others for each of the districts, what would fall into other?
So that would be anything that's not captured in the ones I went through. So that if they're not a person's crime, property crime, traffic-related or drug offense, so it could be some other statute, it could be an off-highway vehicle act offense, it could be something that's not captured in the.
Not major, would you say?
Correct, not
Okay,
major. No,
all right.
No, they don't garner their own category, so I'm not gonna say they're not important, but they're not significant.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Lee has a question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick question back to the mental health calls. I'm just curious what supports you guys have in terms of, do you have any mental health workers that work in collaboration with you guys for those calls? Or is it just the expectation you guys arrive and then facilitate getting services?
So essentially, our role is police and public safety, right? So we'll get there and assess what are we dealing with. If it's determined to be a mental health and it's a significant mental health issue, we've used the crisis intervention line. Sorry, crisis intervention line. That's an avenue available to us. Other than that, the other options we have are the Involuntary Psychiatric Treatment Act. We'll bring someone before a physician for assessment for their own well-being, and then we'll deal with the other peripheral offenses after the fact. But most important is the person's well-being, obviously, the safety of them, the safety of everybody else. Do we have specifically mental health workers with us in the car? No.
That don't help, okay.
No, we don't.
Okay, just checking on that.
And we don't have provisions to do that.
Okay.
From a liability standpoint. So essentially, we don't have the resources, or we don't have the provisions to put a healthcare worker, I guess, in our vehicle. It creates some liability issues from the safety side.
Nope, understand. Just curious, especially where those numbers seem to be escalating and continue to do so, just looking in the future.
And a lot of these complaints, as I'm sure everybody's aware, none of these are silos, right? So the mental health and housing issues and addiction issues and property crimes are all interwoven.
Yes. Okay, thank you for that.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on with some of the notable occurrences.
There's quite a few here. I won't go through the engagement ones at the end. That's just a list of what we've done out in the community in the last 3 months. The notable occurrences, we had a complaint. We're regularly receiving complaints from the Spring Hill facility, correctional facility, regarding drones. They have an anti-drone equipment there that detects drones. And we've attended the scene multiple occasions. This is an example of one. It's an Aeronautics Act offense. Members attended, located a male. We had no evidence to proceed with anything. During the traffic stop, while members were dealing with one male, 2 other vehicles fled with their lights off, left the area at a high rate of speed. So we're getting all kinds of those types of things happening. Certainly not every night, but they are happening, I'd say, relatively frequently. Weekly, yeah. So that's something that we're trying to focus on, and I know street crime is looking into that as well. It's a difficult one, especially with the capabilities of drones now, where they can fly from kilometers and kilometers away. It's a difficult one to find the person that's dealing with them on the ground. Next one there, weapons complaint. We basically were dealing with a person, complaint of someone who was dealing with a male, and they showed him a sawed-off shotgun. We attended, and the subject, who was on a conditional sentence order already, so he was already serving a sentence in the community, resisted arrest. He was in possession of brass knuckles and a shotgun. He ended up dealing with 10 charges and was held on remand. We executed a search warrant, seized an ATV, and he ended up getting 180 days and 18 months probation. Next one, dangerous operation of motor vehicle. Call of vehicles driving the wrong side of Highway 104. Vehicle was stopped by 2 off-duty firefighters and 2 fishery officers. We arrived on scene, and there was indicators of drug impairment. We could see where the vehicle had struck other items or other stationary objects before it was stopped. And he was arrested when he failed a DRE evaluation, which is a drug recognition expert. So that's another thing that's certainly an issue now, not only along with alcohol impairment, is drug impairment. We're seeing more of that. After that, another Aeronautics Act complaint from CSC Spring Hill. And they said that the drone was large and was carrying a package, so that's what they're doing, is dropping contraband into the facility. No contraband was located by staff, and patrols of the area did not locate anybody in that instance. On 1st of February, possession of property obtained by crime. Complainant said his trailer was located at an address in Spring Hill with other stolen items inside. And investigation, we attended, the investigation said it was not the complainant's trailer. Then the complainant then said 2 of his friends were at another address in Spring Hill and can see more of his stolen property outside the residence. We ended up doing a search warrant there, and we recovered a significant amount of property. And we do have a person of interest there subject to arrest at this point. 14th of February, we had a firearms mental health complaint. A male called, basically threatened bodily harm or death, would cause harm to himself and the police. Members attended, and the person was negotiated to a peaceful resolution. And he came out, and he was taken for assessment to the hospital. Firearms were seized from the residence. Of course, everybody's familiar with the fatal collision we had regarding snowmobile. We had a male injured laying in the road, unconscious with bystanders performing CPR. Police and fire attended. Turned out there was an unfortunate incident with the fire department vehicle, and that matter is still under investigation at this point, and I can certainly speak to that more later. On the 23rd of February, we had a weapons offense, impaired operation. Highly intoxicated male with 4 children at the subway in Oxford. Members attended and located the male. Subject identified himself as an off-duty police officer from another agency. He was arrested for impaired operation, and a loaded pistol was located, and male faced charges there. On the 8th of March, we had a domestic assault, and the female victim was beaten and choked. The suspect then assaulted the victim's new boyfriend with a weapon and poured gas over the new boyfriend and his vehicle and attempted to ignite the gas. Investigation revealed, because it was reported sometime after the fact, investigation revealed the same suspect was involved in an impaired driving investigation and a breach file 2 days previous, and had already been remanded into custody. So we already had him in custody at that point when that complaint was made. So additional charges were laid. On the 18th of March, Cumberland Street crime members, of course, are inside and outside the town boundary of Amherst, so they assisted with a file regarding threats made against the Prime Minister by a resident of Amherst. We ended up containing the residence. An investigation revealed the person was at a camp outside of town, and arrangements were made for him to turn himself in. So the town police dealt with that because they originated from inside the town of Amherst, but our SKU team was involved with the investigation. On the 20th of March, we had a firearms complaint in Pugwash. We attended and located the scene, or located a male at the scene who was known to us and prohibited from firearms. A loaded shotgun was located on the deck of the residence in plain view. He was arrested and taken to court. Remanded into custody. 7 weapons charges are pending. We had a very small border protest, again, at the border, involving 6 vehicles and probably a dozen people. And they turned out this time they were just inside the New Brunswick border. So that caused us no grief other than just monitoring the situation. That's it for the notables for that quarter. Say I won't run down through the community engagement. It's there to what we've been doing if anybody wants to go through. We've made great efforts the second half of this school year to get out into the schools. We had a public presentation about human trafficking in Spring Hill, and I believe some of you were there, and all along with a community meeting. So fairly straightforward there. We targeted all the different age groups, and the vast majority, if not all, the schools have had at least 2 or 3 of the 4 possible presentations that we had available. We did impaired driving, cybersecurity, human trafficking, and what's the 4th topic? Bullying. So target all the age groups that we could.
Is there any questions from anybody? Counselor Redmond.
Listening to all these that are let out after they're charged for long periods of time, with our new minister, Sean Fraser, what would be one thing that you would suggest to him in being able to change a law that we could change so that there's not such a length, so they're not out there again committing the crimes over and over again? That they go to jail when they should go to jail, I guess, if that made sense.
Personally, I'd like to see, as a police officer, I'd like to see the threshold for conditional sentence orders be raised. So the bar is not set quite where it is now. A lot of our clients that we're dealing with through criminal courts are people that are already in the community on some type of probation or conditional sentence order. Were they to be incarcerated, obviously these incidents wouldn't occur. Now, I know that there's a time and a place for conditional sentences orders and serving in the community. I just think maybe the threshold may be not where it should be. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, no, and that's good, and I think it's important that people that work in the field take the time to let him know, where you find the issues, because he's entering into a new field that he sees himself that is not correct, but hearing it from you would mean
Yeah, and you'll see a common theme that when we are dealing with our clients that we deal with, not all, but sometimes the people are on some type of conditions, a curfew, and the majority of our breaches are breaches of orders, and they're serving a sentence in the community, right?
Yeah.
Which is by times could be appropriate, right?
Yeah.
But not always.
Not always, no. And it's very frustrating for the people that are involved in these situations, to see these people back out in the community, and then they're repeat offenders stealing more property and,
Well, and as a service provider for Cumberland, our members every night are doing breach checks on people on these conditional sentence orders in the communities. So sometimes they're doing 1 or 2, sometimes they're doing 9, 10, or 12.
Yes.
That's time they're not doing other things, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about downloading, right? So it's great that we're saving, so Correctional Service of Canada don't have people incarcerated, so I get that's probably a positive to them. But the community sentence orders, they're not a free pass for either costs, whether it be person hours or dollars or whatever, right? So our members, we have no way to track the actual time that it takes, of course, but it's not insignificant, I would say. I mean, every night that we do on the watch report, they have to say how many CSO checks or conditional sentence order checks that they've done in an evening. And they've gone to see, Jones, Smith, and all these people, and, so those are all a time thing, right?
Thank you.
I have a question.
Question there, Mr. Budley?
Yeah, just wondering, from what you mentioned about the prison in Spring Hill, a few times I've noticed in the news that they're collecting, $400,000 worth of, I don't know, combination of drugs, whatever else. There must be some big connections outside in the community that's providing this to the incarcerated people.
So a lot of what's happening with I can't speak to what's happening in the facility, because that's, I don't know.
That's right.
Right? But I know that just anecdotally, in talking with CSC personnel, a lot of it is very professionally done and interconnected, so it's not necessarily maybe someone from the local community that's always doing this. It could be someone that's brought down from Moncton or Montreal, and they're going to Dorchester, they're going to Renews, they're going to Spring Hill, and doing their drone thing. Because it's, let's face it, it's organized crime, right? And that's what's occurring. So it's not, I'm sure there's a local side of it as well, but I don't think I think there's a lot of it that's highly organized, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Lockhart.
Am I on?
There you go.
Yeah, just on the prison side of it, so I'm actually the chairman of the CAC board out there also, and I live on Harrod Road, and that is where most of those drugs are entering, is the far side of Harrod Road, up past where everybody lives. And it's been a huge issue, so that is an area that's heavily concentrated by the drones coming in through there. And I just made a suggestion I've made it a couple times now, there's 2 guard towers out there they haven't used in years. Why don't they fire those up with a big searchlight? But that seemed to be way too much work, so they didn't do that. So that's a suggestion that's out there. And the other thing I just wanted to kind of say that's institutional value of the drugs. That's not actual street value. Wouldn't that be true? When they're talking $400,000, it would be institutional value.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
So what defines institutional value? Because prisoners, they don't have 100,000 in their back pocket.
So an item, it's a supply and demand, so an item, X amount of drugs on the street is worth X amount of dollars, X amount of drugs in the prison is worth much more than that because of the scarcity.
Okay,
So that's same as a cell phone or same as.
okay.
Just gonna add on the cell phone. I know, because we talked about it last time, a cell phone's worth $4,000 in the institution.
So somebody outside has to be paying for that.
Is there any other questions? Seeing none,
I have one.
yeah, okay,
Okay, if you, yes,
No, go
yours
ahead.
now.
go ahead.
It was just on page 27 of the package, you, Andrew, talk about RCP resources, and I know in the past that was an issue for us. My count is that you're down 6, is that correct?
Yep, so right now we are down 6. We're down 4 off-duty, 2 on restricted duties. So they are working, they are contributing, but they're in an administrative function.
Okay. Thank you.
So not ideal, better than where we were, but we still can improve.
Thank you.
Councillor Strong.
Yes, we do have our new officer in Advocate Harbor, and I was just wondering what his duties are, and is he just for the Parsbro area, or does he have a larger?
No, so with the transition to 24-hour policing and the 4-watch system here, the boundaries exist for the purposes of identification and statistical gathering, and we have an office and we have a presence in each community. But no, he's a member of his watch, so he's one of 4 watches.
So he's one of the 4 constables from the Parsbro detachment.
Correct, and
Okay.
and even this is even somewhat, I don't want to say misleading, because this is how the positions are allotted, because these are the historical detachment boundaries. But basically, from this pool here, we have 4 watches.
Okay.
Two have 7, 2 have 6. They provide policing service. So you might have a watch where you might have 1 or 2 from Parsbro on that watch. The next watch might have no one from Parsbro, quote unquote, so to speak, but they all go everywhere.
Okay.
So there's no, so the member in Advocate, he could be in Pugwash.
Right.
There's no boundaries as far as their file
Okay.
assignments are concerned.
That's good to know. Also, in the office in Parsbro, I've had a lot of constituents say that they're never open, and I understand that the young lady that mans the office is off on stress leave or sick leave, and the office is sometimes open Tuesdays and Thursdays, but oftentimes not. Is there any indication when that position or when the office will be able to be open Monday to?
I can't speak to an employee's medical
No, but
status or prognosis or an end date. Right now, we have 2 ladies who work out of Amherst.
Right.
One of those 2 ladies is going down 2 days a week to work in Parsbro. We have 2 support positions in Amherst because of the volume of work. So anybody not being at work obviously creates issues.
Right.
So we're managing it essentially by providing 2 days of service, Tuesdays and Thursdays per week, as well as at any time, anybody can go to any other office
Right.
if they need counter service.
I've just been told that even though the Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's been, times where there's been nobody there, even on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
At times, yeah, at times that may be the case if someone is sick, or there's, the other lady who works in Amherst, if she's not available, I have to have Amherst open.
Right.
So, I might hold Megan Wilkins is the lady that goes to Parsbro. I may hold Megan back to Amherst to maintain counter service in Amherst.
Okay.
So at any time, anybody can get counter service to any other office in the county, and the phones will always bounce through and be answered. So it might not be answered in Parsboro, but it will be answered.
Okay.
Thank you. And Councillor Hotelling.
Just wondering, it says for the Pugwash Detachment 1 Constable on GRW, what does that mean?
It's graduated return to work.
Okay.
So that would be in light duties or administrative duties.
Gotcha.
So they can't go out and do full police officer duties, but they can do files, front counter service, work reduced hours, something of that nature. Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, Mr. Harrit took my question, but I'll just make a quick comment. Is that there's pretty shocking that there's this many occurrences that are happening in a 3-month period. So let's take this opportunity to thank you guys for the work that you're doing. And a lot of times it's not seen. No one knows a lot of this stuff is even going on. So appreciate your work.
Thank you.
So if there's no other questions, and 3.3, speed enforcement, Tidnish River, and Mayor Gilroy is going to give us a little update.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Few complaints from, and some comments from the Tidnish area regarding enforcement on the river, now that boating season is virtually upon us. And they're wondering if we're gonna see some increased presence from you folks during the boating season, particularly maybe around the long weekend in July or some of the really high activity times. The second question is, if there were to be speed limit signs, I know from around Jackson's Point, up around the docks there at Tidnish River, there are some signage there that says the speed limit is 10 kilometers or 15 kilometers, whatever it is. But above the 366, there's very little, if none, from there to the Green Road Bridge. And people are asking, like, who's responsible? Is there anybody responsible to put those signs up? Or are they allowed to do it themselves? Or can the municipality make signs and have them installed? There's lots of questions. So.
What would you like to talk about first?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, so Tidnish River is one of 6 designated areas in the province that's under the vessel, I want to make sure I get it right, Vessel Operation Restriction Regulations. So essentially, that's another layer of governance, right, over the waterway, over and above the Canada Shipping Act small vessel regs, okay? So with that, the local authority, I'm assuming at some point there's been some type of arrangement or agreement between the municipality here and Transport Canada regarding signage. I can't speak to that because that predates me.
Me too. Me too.
Now, I do have all kinds of light reading that I've gotten dug into here on this, right?
Okay, good.
So there is, essentially what it says is any of the VORR waterways, the municipality or the authority, right, would be the municipality, has to make signage that's in accordance, and they've got a whole 25-page book here on how to make the signs, right?
Not in my mind.
And it has to, right, it has to post it, have to be posted in a conspicuous area. So Brian and I have some ideas about that. There's also options, one of the big ones is that the public boat ranch, launch, right? There's nothing there. And
No,
and as you know, I live right on the river there,
Yep,
right? So
yep.
another thing is you can also have private buoys or buoys, depending on how you say it, that also have the speeds posted there, and it tells you all about what the requirements for those, size and height and everything else with speed involved. So that's part of it. Part of it's the signage. The other part of what I see is the education component. And we can help with that, and I think probably the municipality can help with that too, with regards to Facebook and, did you know, right? Talk about impaired operation, talk about dangerous operation of a vessel, all this kind of stuff, right? So there's that type of stuff that we can get into here as well. From an enforcement side, I've talked to my manager and I said I want a boat. We used to have a small boat here, we don't anymore. We used to have a little aluminum boat.
Yep, used to have a couple of Sea-Doos too at one point in time.
A borrowed thing, yeah.
Okay, yep.
So anyway, and we'll discuss that more, but essentially for this year, because time is short, I'm looking to borrow something from another district for certain time periods during the summer,
Yep.
right? I haven't got a commitment on that yet, so I don't know if I'll get some weekends, all the weekends, or none weekends. I'm hoping for some. I'm hoping for weekends that it's sunny, high tides midday, right? And I can have the boat from Thursday through Sunday, but we'll see, right? So that's kind of my plan right now, and I haven't heard back from the boat part either way. Regarding the signage, there is lots of detail, and I can talk to Greg about that, what's needed, but I certainly have some ideas, because I would say, in living on that river and having boated on that river for close to 4 decades, the signage is subpar there right now. There's also mixed messaging, so the speed over ground that's allowed is 15 kilometers per hour, unless you're within 30 meters from a riverbank. Well, the majority of that river, you're within 30 meters of the
Yes.
riverbank, so it's 10, right?
Yep.
But if people look up online, it says 15. Now, my other issue I have with that is a 25-foot boat doing 10 or 15 kilometers an hour still has probably a 2 or 3 foot wake, right? So I would also suggest some no wake signs. Now, no wake is not enforceable in Canada. They're not recognized as an enforcement sign, but it's what I would call a courtesy sign. It's like a cautionary sign when you're in an 80 zone, you come to a sharp corner and it has the yellow sign that says 60. Well, that's not statutory. Like, we can't charge you for doing more than 60 on that corner, but it's a good idea. It's an advisory, right? So no wake would be a good idea, right? So that's my ideas with regards to that. The education thing is not hard with regards to social media. I think we can come up with something for that, and we can partner with the municipality there and kind of have, so we don't have any mixed messaging. The signage, I can help with that, but it's kind of going to be, from what I've read, it's kind of going to be on with the municipality. And the enforcement, I have to get some wheels.
Yep.
Other than using my own.
Right,
wheels,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Right.
So, well, I know that, the signs really, they're proven to work. If anybody here has been in Jackson's Point Road lately, between the pavement and the sharp turn out by the water, there must be 75 screaming slow down signs on every tree and every post going in there. And you know what? They slow down because it's just so repetitive, right?
That's right.
And it's the same thing on the river. I think I agree with you. If we could get the signage that would be required, at least it keeps people reading it. Every 50 meters or 75 meters, they read that same damn sign over and again, and they start to slow down,
And
right?
what's
So,
wrong with having, maybe 2 or 3 of these private, we'd say these private boys things, right? We could have either side of, whether you go upriver or downriver from the public launch, let's say. That'd be a good place to start. With doing enforcement without a boat for us is problematic, because what we're gonna have is we're gonna have the people that are not a problem are gonna stop and talk to us.
Yep.
The people that are a problem aren't, and they're gonna go to New Brunswick, right? They're gonna go to Port Elgin, they're gonna go somewhere, across the line, so to speak. Not that we can't deal with it, but it's problematic with regards to identification of the operator. It's problematic with regards to if we get into anything else with regards to criminal code, like dangerous operation of vessel or impaired operation.
Yep.
So I like to have my ducks in a row as far as, if I'm gonna do it, we wanna be able to stop them the same as if we have a car, and, a car on the road.
Yeah.
We have to have the means to apprehend somebody.
yeah, and the sad reality of it is the municipality owns 3 boats, one in Tidnish, one in Pugwash, and one in Shinnemakas, that are absolutely ideal for doing this kind of work. And if you go to one of those fire chiefs and ask to borrow their boat, they're probably gonna say no. So
Well-
it's just kind of weird. I don't know how that would all work,
Well-
but those boats would be perfect, right?
Yeah, and that's the
Rescue
same,
boats.
like prior to my career was with the Coast Guard.
Yep.
So I'm fast rescue crafts are what I spent a lot of my time on, so I'm very familiar with those types of boats. Something like that, or even smaller, is fine. But I need to say, internally, I have some challenges, and I've got snowmobiles and ATVs, but I don't have a boat.
Right.
Locally.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to working together on that over the next month or 2 then.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Hotelin's question?
Pugwash River is also known for speeding boats going up the estuary, lots of complaints. That we have a boating association with an aluminum boat, which doesn't go fast at all, but, yeah, they put out buoys, and those could have signs on them, but if you're making signs there's a few rivers in my district that are used like that.
If you go on, there's a guide here. It's a lot of pages. And then there's this book here, which basically tells you all the criteria for what the signs have to be. So they are fairly, you can't start painting plywood and marking sign, or different messages down on them. They're pretty fussy over how they are, but just to give you an idea, like these buoys here, this is what they're talking about. So like a signal buoy, and it will have a sign, it'll have a portion above the water, and it gives pretty precise measurements of what it must be, and what can be marked on it and what can't be marked on it. And for any enforcement action to take place, all the signage would have to comply with these regulations. Because that's the first thing, like when we write a speeding ticket, you know, was the speed limit sign a statutory sign? Like, that's the first thing, and obviously that's, you know, municipalities and, Department of Transportation, right, they're aware of that and all their signs conform, but there's a situation where we start branching out into, you know, making our own signs or whatever, we gotta really be careful about that.
No, I'm just saying, if you make signs for Tidnish, then
Yeah, well, I don't see it, but that river's not under this set of regulations.
Right.
oh,
So you
okay.
can't just go throwing signs around the rivers, it has to be listed under, yeah. So it talks about Lake Micmac, Lake Banook, a bunch of 5 or 6 in the province, and then Tidnish River's like the last one.
Really?
Yeah, it's,
Why would
Yeah,
only
well-
one river be?
Lake Banook, Kearney Lake, Lake Micmac, and Lake Micmac again, and it gives a different Latin long, right? Talks about lines north of and south of by Waverly Road. And Tidnish River upstream from Irwin's Point, and it gives a Latin long. So that's for the whole province, there's 5. That's it. And everything's in HRM except for this one.
Wow.
So lucky us.
You gotta wonder.
Yeah. So, somebody at some point must have petitioned for that, but,
Did you have a question?
anyway, we'll certainly do what we can to,
And there's lots of volunteers out there to help out, you know, if we needed some help, you know, installing posts to put these things on or whatever.
Yep.
There's all kinds of people that, you know, and lots of them would be willing to come to a community meeting, if you want, you know, if that was advisable, to host one up there at Tidnish Hall. There'd be lots of people to show up, I guarantee you.
see what we want to do and how we want to approach it and what regards in signs, and certainly, I think signs and education are, I don't want to say easy, but they're a good first step, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Redmond?
Yeah, I just think it's kind of ironic that there's nobody that can enforce these regulations, but yet they're telling you what's kind of sign to put up. So who's gonna enforce it if the sign's wrong?
Oh, yeah, well, I mean, say, we're listed, so there's 2 enforcement agencies or 3 actually, for province of Nova Scotia. So it lists the RCMP, it lists Department of Natural Resources, so feel free to call them instead of us. Right? But I don't know what kind of situation they're gonna be in with the boat, right, or I know I'm sure they're busy as well. And then the other part talks about any bylaw officer trained in marine enforcement appointed by the municipality, right? And there's a whole bunch of criteria, so it does, it's not just the police, but, police just need a boat.
So we'll call Al.
Yeah, Al.
Yep, there you go.
So maybe we better move on before, Al, you get another job here. Is there any other questions on this topic? So we'll move ahead to 3.4, under the business issues, drug issue in Spring Hill, and Councillor Lockhart had some concerns.
Thank you. Anyway, first I wanted to introduce myself, I wasn't here.
You're not ready yet, Scott.
Oh.
Wait, don't touch it, don't touch it. Don't touch it. There you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
we're
guess-
on now. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself because I wasn't at the last meeting. I was there online. I'm Scott Locker and I represent District 6, which is half of Spring Hill out to Westbrook, around to Collingwood, all the way up past the old fish hatchery to the Colchester County line. And when I ran for council this fall, I knocked on over 500 doors. And the number one concern at the doorsteps of that broad in Spring Hill and also outside was safety. People did not feel safe in their homes anymore. The drug problem and just the crime that goes with the drug problem. And believe me, I know about that. In Spring Hill, we have 2 major drug houses. And I don't know if you got a picture, but I supplied pictures. This has been going on for a long time. One on Main Street is near the new elementary school. The crossing guard, God bless her heart, takes the kids at the intersection below and cross the road so they don't have to walk by this. And since the nice weathers came, it used to be more just late at night in the winter, but now it's picked up. It's basically all day. They're terrorizing the elderly neighbors. People are scared for their lives. People are talking about taking crime or the law in their own hands. I know lots of seniors that have baseball bats and loaded rifles in their house now, which I never did growing up. I grew up in Spring Hill. The other one is up on Mechanic Street, and again, right next to our kids' splash pad that not us, but the community raised the funds to build. And even our recreation director, Ally, has expressed, concern being so close to the kids. There was actually, now if you talk to the neighbors, there was an explosion or a fire, at least there's pictures there. I was up there yesterday, and the garage or shed where they were probably manufacturing the drugs is now burnt down or gone. So we've got many complaints on this. And just in the last few days, the good people that own Foodland have, raised a red flag about early in the morning when they come to work, needles and garbage and drug paraphernalia around the parking lot. I'm just really, I totally understand as a county councilor, or if I was a mayor, MLA, or MP, I have no way to direct how the RCMP does their job. But I was elected by those people to represent them and keep their interest at the best interest. And these people are scared. They're worried. And we need some kind of movement on this. Now, I want to congratulate you on the bus just down the road the other day, a major one. It just blows my mind that these people can sell and do this on Main Street. It just blows my mind. So I have a couple questions. If you don't have the answer right now, that's fine, because I know you didn't know the questions I was going to ask. But these two locations, I'd like to know how many complaints, because I know there's been lots, have come from there. If any charges were ever laid from these complaints. And the third one was what your clearance rate on these files were. Those are my three questions that I have. And then I'd like to know if you have a plan, a 6-month plan, 12-month plan, or 1-year plan for the drug crisis that we are facing, not just in Spring Hill, but all Cumberland County.
I'll answer this one. Your first three questions, you'd have to give us time to know. We'd have to look up the statistics
Well,
on the computer.
I just realized
I can't tell you that. And off the top of my head, yes, we go to those houses, but I couldn't tell you how much. I read every file that comes into Cumberland, but I don't remember every file that comes into Cumberland. But those addresses are not new addresses to me. So yes, we've been there before in the past. What it has resulted from there, I'm not sure. I know that we have a member in Spring Hill, Jarrett McDonald. I don't know how many of you have met Jarrett. He's in Spring Hill constantly. He's aware of these addresses. He parks in front of them for hours, sometimes in a marked police car. He is around. As for dealing with the drug end of it, there's a little more to it than just parking a marked police car out front.
I understand.
And our street crime unit is aware of lots of places in the area, and they've got more than several outstanding files that they're working on now that I obviously can't discuss. But they're not, all their files they're working on now are all drug files. So you heard about their success, and I can read out what they got exactly in their last bust, but that affects the whole county, and they're hoping to continue with that, and they do have more files that probably won't give them that much of a result, but will give results. So I don't know if that answers your question. I'd certainly be glad to go through the stats and get them for you if you wanted to send me an email, or we could bring it up at the next meeting, but I off the top of my head, I can't give you them.
Well, that'd be fine. I will ask my food person.
Brian, if you can just send those to me, I'll certainly make sure that all of the board gets them.
That's the best idea. Okay, yep.
And I totally do understand it's not as simple as that. But I just know that these people, and these are all good people, and they're seniors, and they lived in town, and they've, and they're terrorized. And I'm scared, personally, that something really bad's gonna happen. And somebody's gonna get killed. And I know there was actually, the one on Main Street, there was a ambulance there, and one time it was supposed to be a stabbing. I'm not an RCMP officer, and I wasn't there, but I'm just going by what the neighbor said. So, I'm just really, really scared, and I just want to be proactive, and I wanted to make this point today with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I can give you my card too, my email on it. And I just want to see if we can all work together to come up with, and I know it's a huge issue, and it's a mental health issue. The people that are addicted or out all night are not the ones that we need to have in prison. And in prison, not jail, I said prison. And I don't know if, hopefully this new government will crack down on, make a little tougher sentences for that. But anyway, I really appreciate all you do, and I'll give you my card after the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lockhart. Does anybody else have any questions? Mayor Gilroy.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Couple of complaints the last few days from some of the businesses, especially the Foodland in Spring Hill, regarding their dumpster being set on fire and some serious issues at the rear of their building, and they're fearful for staff have been accosted by individuals and so on and so forth. There appears to be some sort of development going on in the trees back of the building, and what about, so I'm curious whether or not, is there a need to get into Spring Hill and have a meeting with some of the business community and say, hey, you know, let's get all the problems out on the table so we're aware of all of it? I mean, I don't know how you approach that, so.
Yeah, we certainly can do that, because I think a lot of maybe what you're aware of, we're not getting maybe the volume or the severity of it. Some reports are reported to police, some aren't.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, if that's something that you think would be worthwhile, we can certainly do that.
I guess the other side of it too would be, if we get emails as counselors and from members of the public complaining about these types of things, and detailing events and outlining situations and whatever, is it okay for us just to forward them on to you? Or how do we process these?
So, with that, I think we need the people, or the complainants, the people contacting you, if it comes to us, we're gonna address it. So that's gonna mean contacting them. And I don't know, not everybody wants to be contacted by the police. Some people are not okay with that. They feel either it's not good use of their time, or they're concerned about their safety, or they don't want to get involved with the court process, or for whatever reason, they don't want. So I can't speak for, I mean, that's their prerogative. Whereas if someone contacts us directly, you know, there's it's implied that they want to be involved to some degree, right? And then we'll have that conversation.
Yep.
I would respectfully suggest that if they're contacting you, that if they please advise them to call us.
Yeah.
And then we'll generate a complaint.
Yeah.
A file will be generated with address 12345, and we can contact them and say, look, I don't want to give my name, I don't want to provide a statement, but I want to tell you this is going on. Okay, well, that's fine, we can take that information. Or I do want to be involved, I am going to provide a statement, I do want to go to court. So, and we'll manage those files appropriately. I don't know how it would be for your guys' role, getting an email and then automatically sending it to us without the person's consent.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Again,
That would be my concern, right?
My concern would be, how many are we getting that you don't get? And, you know, it's not much good to us just to send it to us if we don't make somebody aware. And making it aware, having a conversation every quarter about hearsay of different things is not, you know, it's not good policing for you folks, because there's nothing you can act on. You're just hearing stories of people, you know, whatever, right? So, yeah, exactly, so.
So, I mean, if people want to provide us, you know, intelligence or information in broad strokes, and we can take that by email, and it might corroborate something we already know or something we're working on. But as far as to take that one thing and to act on it, that might be a little bit challenging, I guess, is what I would.
So I guess we would agree on the fact that if anybody in this room gets an email complaining about those types of illegal activities, your first response back to them is it okay if I forward this to the RCMP?
Yeah, or have you
And
contacted the RCMP?
If they answer yes, by all means,
Sure.
then you send the whole thing on.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
So-
and we'll deal with it, we'll open a
Yep.
file, and we'll have an investigator contact them and see what we can do with it.
You know, because at some point, the citizens have to take ownership of this problem too, along with us, along with you. I
Yep.
mean, that is the reality of it, so.
Yep.
We, you know, one group by themselves acting in a silo cannot solve this overriding problem, right? So, thank you.
If I could just jump in on that, Mr.
was
Chairman,
just gonna-
on that issue. Just in terms of the administration of dealing with those sorts of complaints, so just suggestion, members of council get those complaints, you want to forward them to our customer service system. That'll allow us to also capture the data, and we're happy to then send them on directly to the RCMP. So it gets all of our complaints in one place, and we can send them as we get them. Obviously, that doesn't work for the urgent things. You need to call 911 to take care of those. But those sorts of community policing, community safety sort of complaints, we're happy to take them and pass them along. We do it instantly, but we're happy to do that. So, yeah. Thank
Thank you. I personally would like to see cut out the middle person and try to get them to make the call themselves to their local authorities. But anyway, we have to help facilitate it. That's what we'll do. I think we got a couple more questions. Councillor Lee?
Deputy Mayor, thank you. Just listening to this conversation, going back to the beginning of your presentation with the big four topics in the school systems and what you were sharing, we're a group of adults and we're navigating how to connect with you guys in terms of reaching out for services or what it is we should or should be doing in terms of connecting with the RCMP. I just thought of an incident that I supported in our community where youth presented with an issue that went to another youth who came to me. And I'm just wondering, while you guys are building relationships with youth, if there is any communication about the expectation of connecting with you guys, when to connect, how it's appropriate, like that community building, so there's an understanding and a collaboration that they understand to go to you guys. You know what I'm saying? In terms of, for support, because I come from a different generation where maybe it wasn't encouraged to reach out to you guys in moments of need. So I'm just wondering what it looks like in terms where you are in those facilities and those buildings with those youth.
Well, that's, I guess, the purpose of getting people back out into the schools,
Okay.
right, was to have that. So it was kind of, you know, community policing's been kind of evolving over the last 25, 30 years, 30 years, I guess, to date ourselves. And it was, we had the DARE program, we had community policing officers in the schools all the time. And then we start to get this bit of pushback from certain segments, and certain parents don't like their armed police officers in the schools. Then with that dovetails right into the whole, in the last, 5, 8 years of defund the police and all these types of things. So I think there was some pullback there. Then, of course, you have COVID creating the perfect storm. So in my opinion, as a police officer and as the commander here, we haven't been in the schools enough to make those connections, and I'm trying to change that course a little bit. Other side of the house, outside of school-age kids, dealing with the rest of the public and whatnot, we do have a relatively active social media page for the province. There's online crime reporting. There's Crime Stoppers. I mean, I know a lot of you guys have heard me say these things before, but there's a lot of different ways to contact us with various levels of, I don't want to say accountability, anonymity would be, I guess, the best way. So Crime Stoppers, obviously, we just want to provide information, right, not your name, as they say. But online crime reporting for certain crimes is easy. You can do it from your couch. For more serious crimes, you are required to call in. You know, 911, the local detachment, come to the front counter. We endeavor to have counter service here in all 5 communities. We're not always successful all the time, but we try to. And if that's not possible, call and say you want to speak to a police officer. And you don't have to share with anybody other than they'll ask you what's it regarding. And just say, I want to talk about a theft, or I want to talk about an assault. And that's really all you have to say. And a police officer will probably call you first, and then this is a good time to come see you, and go from there. So there's all kinds of ways to do that. But in dealing with specifically the youth, I'm really trying to get kind of re-energized on getting into the schools.
And I think it's important, especially in the rural communities, because I grew up in River Hibbert, and it was one of your RCMP officers when I hit a Y that was in that community and was present that picked me up one day and said, what are we doing with life? So like you guys, I have nothing but the utmost respect. You operate on a different level with a bunch of civilians that are trying to tell you what needs to be done and support you guys best we can, but the youth especially, like I think there's a window of opportunity right now, especially with all the online stuff and the things that are happening for a connection to support those kids.
Yeah, and just, you know, it's almost as simple, in my opinion, and I'm very linear person. I think just getting that familiarity. So I don't want people to say, oh my God, there's a car at the school.
Right.
I want to say, oh, there's a car at the school. Like I want that to be a normalized, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've kind of lost a little bit of that, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on it.
Okay, perfect. That's great to hear.
Thank you, Councillor Lee, and Councillor Lockhart.
I just wanted to say one last thing, was I would fully support that meeting with the business owners that Mayor Rod talked about, and I think that's a great idea, great step, first step.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to attend I mean, the meeting we were at in Spring Hill there with the human trafficking, we kind of had a very general community meeting. But if we want to have one specifically to deal with crime issues or property crime or whatever, no, after going to Wentworth, I'm not worried about any meeting. It's all good.
Before I get away from here, that was a great meeting in Spring Hill. And it raised awareness on so many levels for so many people. It really was fantastic. I don't know if I probably told you that when I was there that night, but in retrospect, you've become very aware, and I've seen a couple of instances since then where they've arrested a number of individuals involved in that game recently, and obviously there's a lot of work going into getting that stopped, and it certainly needs to be done. So.
A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that doesn't necessarily get out like some of the other flashier stuff does, you know?
Exactly, so.
Thank you. See any more questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to 3.5, Poison Lake Incident Investigation. Sergeant Clark, you're up again.
Yeah, well, I don't have much of an update at this point. All I can tell you is that we're waiting on one more report, and then we'll be in a position to see where the investigation leads. So there's been nothing more to really say at this point. The file's still open, so I can't comment a whole lot on that. But we had a couple of external reports that we were waiting on, and we just recently received one last week, and we're waiting on one more. So stay tuned, more to come on that shortly. I anticipate the report we're waiting on won't be long.
That's good. I mean, you had indicated shortly afterwards that it could take months and months, so it's moving along fairly quickly in terms of what could have happened. So.
It is, and having been a collision reconstructionist myself, sometimes these reports are 4, 5, 6 months is not uncommon at all. They go through a very thorough, obviously investigative process, then they go through a peer review process. On a peer review, quite often you basically will get sent back to maybe readjust or check or double check something. So there's a process so when we get the final product, we're good to go if we are going to go via court or not. So we'll have all our cards then, and then we'll make a decision. Myself and Sergeant Cameron, Sergeant McDonald will look at the file with the investigator, and we'll make a decision about where we're going with it.
Oh, we appreciate that. I'm assuming that there won't be any questions because he won't be able to answer them.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't say a whole lot more than that.
So yeah, no, that's we appreciate the update. And that looks like we're at the end of our meeting. But before we adjourn, do we need to set another date, or we just do that on our own? Or
Do we have one in the book? Maybe we
do we? Okay. Perfect. Yep.
I don't know if
We can communicate
Yep, we can do that.
afterwards, and we'll get something set up. But no, it's good to get back at the table again and get this committee rolling. So I appreciate your time and effort today, and for coming. And having said that, I'll look for someone to adjourn the meeting. Councillor Redmond, we're adjourned.